Hi, my name is Garison. I'm a senior here at Midland Christian, and I'm incredibly blessed to be able to give my senior chapel today. When thinking about what I wanted to do for my chapel today, something that repetitively came up in my mind was the thought of trusting in the Lord. A great example of this in my mind is the story of Joseph. Joseph's story is just so amazing to me, and all that happens to him, being sold into slavery by his brothers, eventually being thrown into prison, where he's finally called out of prison and becoming number 2 in all of Egypt. What I love about this story is just the way that Joseph never loses his trust in God. It never once says in the Bible that Joseph is angry at God. He just continually leans upon the Lord in all that he does. And I think it's just an amazing example of how the Lord can use any and every situation we may find ourselves in to glorify Him. We don't know what tomorrow will look like, but we can always trust that the Lord will provide for us and that He'll make us into what He wants us to be, that we may glorify Him. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. It doesn't say this like we're going to have a perfect life without any troubles. When God is saying this, He's saying it to the Israelites who are in exile in Babylon. And He says that they'll be in exile for 70 years before He brings them out. In my mind, this passage is saying that the Lord will provide all that we need that we may glorify Him. It isn't all that we think we need and all that we want, but it's what we need to live so that we may live by God's perfect and holy will and glorify Him. In looking at depending upon God, I like to look at Luke 12:25 through 31. Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the wildflowers grow. They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will He clothe you, you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. The pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek His kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. So when looking at this, something that strikes me is just how little we're in control of in this life. Of course, we're going to worry about things, because that's just our human nature, but there's very little we can do to control them. God will provide all things that we need in this life, and we don't need to worry. We just have to have the faith and trust to completely put our life into His hands. Another story of trust in my mind is the feeding of the 5,000. And Jesus has the giant crowd surrounding Him, and He wants to feed them, but they only have 5 loaves and 2 fish between Him and all of the disciples. Jesus tells them that they need to feed the people, not send them away. And of course, like any normal human being, the disciples have their doubts. They know it's not going to be enough food, and that's what anybody in this day and age would think. But the disciples decide to follow and spread the people out and give them their food. It's so funny to me that after the disciples feed all the people, in God's perfect sense of humor, all the disciples pick up 12 baskets of food. And it's just a perfect example to me of how when we follow God's instructions of being servants and following His will and putting others in front of ourselves, that we don't have to worry about if we'll have enough. With all this craziness going on, it's so easy to not think of putting others in front of yourself. And it's hard to trust God when you never know what tomorrow may look like. But God has proved it all through history that He'll provide for His people. One final thought to leave you with is found in Luke 23:46 when Jesus is on the cross. Jesus called out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When He had said this, He breathed His last. Although Jesus is saying this when He's dying, I think it's something we need to live by each and every day. We try and lean upon ourselves, things are going to go wrong. We can't ultimately provide ourselves. Everything we have comes from God. All we're here to do is to glorify the Lord and allow Him to mold us into what He wants us to be. He will provide us all that we need in order to glorify Him.